All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. All right, so let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. As usual, we're going to start with some announcements, then we'll have our recommended reading, followed by the affirmation of the day. We'll do some introductions and victories. If you're new here, this will be an opportunity for you to introduce yourself if you'd like to, not obligated to. Or if you have a victory you want to share from the last week with us, this will be a chance for you to do that as well. We're going to listen to an excerpt from my audiobook, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. We're still on chapter 4. We'll come back from that, have our topic discussion. We'll take a break at about 8:45. And we'll come back and talk about the assignment, questions and answers, and wrap it up by 9:30. So, first announcement, just a reminder that today's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. Be Bigger Than You Think You Are author-signed paperbacks. Get an exclusive 20% discount by entering the code BOOK20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/book, and I will personally sign that paperback for you. My New York City photography book, New York Cityscapes, is the ultimate and penultimate New York City photo book. It's a collaboration between myself and 6 other Instagram photographers, New York City area photographers, and this is filled with our original photos of New York's iconic landmarks and skyline. And just absolutely breathtaking photos by me, but also by my 6 collaborators. So we all have our own take on the unique New York City landmarks, and I'm very proud of this book. So you can get it on my website. It's on sale for $16.95 at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. I'll also sign that as well. The audiobook is available for pre-order. Now, I have hit a little snag in completing it, so it's going to be a couple more weeks, maybe 3 or 4 more weeks, but I'll keep you posted. It's available for pre-order at $9.99. That's almost half off the regular price. Available at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. And the audiobook as well as the paperback come with a money-back guarantee. If you don't love them, you just let me know. I'll send you your money back. So no risk. No risk. There's no risk. But I know you're going to love it. So check it out today at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. And while you're there, check out your merch needs. We have t-shirts and hats. Save 20% with merch 20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/merch. And while you're there, you can also check out my original art and photography. These are all signed limited edition prints that I took. And they're professionally framed. They're gallery wrap canvas prints. They're absolutely beautiful. And they come in 4 different sizes, as you'll find out in our little commercial. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. bebiggertoday.com/art and photography. Next, we got refrigerator magnets. These are my original photos on refrigerator magnets, and they are part of a collection of New York City souvenirs that my images were licensed for use for. And as I keep saying, there's a story behind these refrigerator magnets. It has to do with forgiveness. You can check it out on my website. If you go to BeBiggerToday.com on the homepage, you'll find a link to this article that I wrote for morning laziness. It talks about forgiveness and how me forgiving an attack on me and my photos on Facebook led to a 5-figure licensing deal for my photos on New York City souvenirs. So check that out. And I'm available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting. If you're a creative person, an artist, or a writer, or if you work for a company or have a company and you'd like me to come in and talk to your sales team, your management team, your HR department on how they can all be bigger than they think they are, contact me through the website and we'll set that up. And one last announcement. I just want to let you guys know that I am accepting donations to to help support the workshop. I want to keep the workshop available at no charge, and I want to keep it open to everyone who would like to join us. And it would also be helpful for me to have some donations, some support coming in. So the suggested donation would be $5 per week or $20 per month. You can send to me any donations at paypal.me/Peter Alessandria. That's all one word. No one will be turned away for lack of funds. You don't have to contribute if you don't want to. On the other hand, if you're getting value out of what we're doing, you'd like to support the work and keep the workshop at no charge for everybody, then this is an opportunity for you to make your contributions. Thank you for your support. All right, so our recommended reading. I mentioned this last week. Some people had questions about A Course in Miracles. Now, I've been studying A Course in Miracles for close to 20 years, and I have a regular group on Tuesday night, an online group, or a phone group actually, where we talk about the Course. And all I can say is A Course in Miracles has changed my life in many, many ways. And I'm not alone. There are lots and lots of people who study the Course, who teach the Course. Now, that being said, it is a challenging read for many of us. It's over 1,200 pages. The text is about 650 pages. There's a 365 lesson workbook. That's another 300 or 400 pages. It's a tough read. So some people are asking about cliff notes and whatnot for the Course. What I'm going to suggest is if you have any interest in kind of easing your way into A Course in Miracles, then this book, The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard, is a great way to kind of ease your way into A Course in Miracles. Now, Gary is a student of the Course, but he's not affiliated. He didn't write A Course in Miracles. The original authors of the Course have passed away many years ago. And the Course itself is kind of represented by a foundation in California. But many people comment on it, many people teach it and study it. And so Gary's one of those people. And he wrote this book in the late 90s, I believe it was. And even though I had studied the Course probably for 4 or 5 years at the time that I found this book, this book was very helpful in kind of explaining some things and just opening my mind up a little bit as to the principles of A Course in Miracles. This book itself is about 300 pages, and it is channeled material. I'm not going to explain anything more than that. It's just an interesting story about how the book came to be and all of that. But it's a great introduction to the principles of the Course in a way that makes it easy for people to understand who may not be familiar with it. And it talks all about forgiveness, which is one of the foundational principles of A Course in Miracles. So check out Gary's book, The Disappearance of the Universe. Gary has actually written 3 other books that are directly related to A Course in Miracles. You could see those on his website at GaryRenard.com. And just quickly, the reason the book is called The Disappearance of the Universe is that one of the basic premises of A Course in Miracles is that everything that we're experiencing in this physical lifetime that we're all having is illusory. It's kind of an illusion. It's kind of a trick of the mind. And the Course likens it to a dream. And just like the dream that we had in bed last night, and the moment when we were having that dream, it all seemed pretty real. And it was very all-encompassing and very engrossing. And in those moments, in the dream state, most of us, most of the time, never doubt the reality of that. You know, it seems as real as anything else. The problem is, when we wake up, the dream disappears. It's gone. And for many of us, it's difficult to even recall what happened. Yet we do know that while we were dreaming, we were very much involved in that as if it was real. And for all intents and purposes, it actually was real until we woke up, and then it disappeared. Well, the premise of the disappearance of the universe, and that comes from A Course in Miracles, is that when we wake up from this dream, this will disappear as well, including the universe. Everything that we think is real, that we think of as physicality, essentially is an illusion of the mind, and we move to a higher level of consciousness. We have a greater awareness, we have a different experience, and everything that was so important and so engrossing and so dramatic and so all-encompassing in this life is almost completely forgotten. We'll talk much more about this when I get my second book done, which will be sometime in 2022. But just want to prepare you for that. So that's where the title, The Disappearance of the Universe, comes from. The idea that when we wake up from this dream, which includes the universe, the physical universe, it all disappears. Okay, our affirmation of the day. This should be familiar to you guys. You know this comes from the song that we play at the beginning, middle, and end of the workshop, I Love My Life. Now, I'm offering this as an affirmation because it's one of the best, quite honestly. And, you know, I drove around today. I had to bring my car in for service, and there were some challenges around getting that done, and there were some financial challenges, and I still got to repeat to myself over and over as an affirmation, I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. Now, some of you have heard me talk about affirmations over the last few months. I do believe that they're a powerful tool that we can use to reprogram the negative thoughts and beliefs that run our lives for many of us. And I've suggested that one of the reasons that they work so well is that we have a lot of experience with affirmations. Most of us, or I'll speak for myself at least, most of the day, I'm affirming various thoughts and beliefs that I have about me, that I have about other people, and that I have about life. The problem is most of those affirmations are negative. So I'm constantly saying things like, my life sucks, or this is not going to work out, or they're not going to like me, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have this, or the, you know, it's all this negative affirming. Can you negatively affirm? Negation, negative affirmation, negation of my life. So what I'm suggesting is let's do this consciously. Let's bring in something positive. Let's reprogram. You can do this affirmation at any time of the day, in almost any place. Some people might look at you a little strange if you do it on public transportation, although I don't know how many people are actually using public transportation these days. But now you may say, how can I say I love my life when I'm out of work, or my kids are sick, or my boss is a pain in the neck, or, you know, all the things that we encounter on a daily basis, which we rely on to decide that our life isn't so great, and that we have an excuse to be upset about life, or to be discontent, or to maybe even be angry with somebody in our life. So I'm not saying that problems don't exist. I'm not saying that challenges don't exist. But if you've made it so far with me in the workshop and in the book, you know that in chapter 3, we talked about true power. And true power is the ability to choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Now, at the end of that chapter, I talked about the fact that all true power decisions are arbitrary vis-a-vis the external world. What that means is the choice to be happy is made independent of what's going on around us. In other words, when I can choose to be happy when is hitting the fan, That's me exercising true power. That's me being in control of my life rather than life being in control of me. If I don't control or own my emotions are going to own me. So by consciously and deliberately making a choice to be happy, to be loving, to be kind, to be forgiving, to be compassionate, to be understanding, even when things are not going so great, even when it looks pretty grim, even when some terrible things are happening either in the world at large or in my life, that's when we exercise our true power. That's when we stop giving our power away to the external circumstances and conditions of our life and own all our actions and reactions. That's when we're powerful. That's when we're in our true power. If I can go through the day without letting the events of the day upset me or throw me off course or whatever, that's really being a powerful person. That's really being the creator of my life, because I'm deciding arbitrarily in that moment to be happy or joyful or compassionate or understanding or forgiving despite what's going on around me. And many people would probably agree that in that situation, forgiveness is not appropriate, or being loving, kind, and compassionate is not the right answer. But we get to decide for ourselves now. That's what this book and that's what these workshops are all about. Taking our power back, becoming the creators of our lives rather than reacting to life and letting life own us, letting our emotions control us. Because you know what? We all know how that goes. I think most of us have lived a little bit of life, and we've seen what happens when our emotions get the best of us. We've seen what happens to other people when the situation gets the best of them. So we have a choice in every moment as to how we experience life. And then the other thing is, with an affirmation like this, I love my life, it's got to help my attitude. And we all know what happens when we have a shitty attitude. And so as I improve my attitude, I improve my relationships, I improve the way I engage in life, I improve the actions I take, I improve the way I relate to other people. And guess what? My life gets better. Now, you could say, well, you're just making this up. And I would say, yeah, you're right. We are just making it up. But we're also making up all that negative stuff too. That negative stuff that we believe about ourselves and that we affirm all day long is no more true than any positive affirmation or anything else. So if we're making up all that stuff, why not make up something good? Why not make up something positive? Why not make up something that's going to move us forward and help us be more productive, more effective, more loving in our relationships with ourselves and with other people? So I don't know about you guys, but I love my life. That's our affirmation of the day. All right, so this is an opportunity for people to either introduce themselves or share a victory from the past week or so. So is there anybody who's new who would like to say hello, or does anybody want to share a victory with us tonight? You can unmute yourself, and don't worry if you didn't get dressed up for New Year's. It's okay. I should have told you guys. So who would like to say hi or share a victory? Anybody?
I do. I want to share victory.
Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Wow, look at you. I just seeing you. Nice outfit. Okay. Dee Dee in Washington, gratefully in the Be Bigger Today workshop with you all. Today, I participated in a Course in Miracles study group. Woo woo. Yeah, I found a list of study groups on the course's website and reached out to a couple of numbers. One got back to me. I participated today. It's not exactly necessarily a place I'll go back on a regular basis because I like a lot more structure in my groups that I attend. Like this one, I really appreciate the structure in this group. Thank you, Peter. But I did, so here's the win. Here's the super big win. I mentioned the book, the Urantia book, and somebody in that workshop showed that book and said, this is the book I'm reading next. And I tell you, I've been around and I've never heard of that book. So thank you to Be Bigger Today, and following the leads. I'll keep coming back. Thanks, Pat.
All right, great. Thank you, Dee Dee. Thanks for sharing that. And you know what? It's just being open to new and different things. You know, I love my book. I think my book can be helpful for a lot of people. But I always like to suggest other stuff because there's so much great information out there now. And I have been helped. I mean, I'm not here by my own, you know, I've been studying for years, you know, it's close to 30 years now I've been studying this stuff. And so I've certainly benefited from other people's work. So that's why I like to suggest to you guys that you try something new, or you can, if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's great too. So great. Thank you, Dee Dee. That is a victory to put yourself out there to try something new. And I really want to acknowledge you for that. So thank you. So why don't we jump in then to our discussion for tonight. So we're still in chapter 4. Actually, this is turning out to be a rich chapter. Lots of great stuff in here. So we're going to actually do one more week next week. This week, we're going to finish up our discussion of love. And next week, we're going to finish up our discussion of fear. So what I'm going to do now is, we're still in chapter 4. As I said, I'm going to play an audiobook excerpt from chapter 4. And then when we come back, we'll start our discussion for tonight. So hang on for that.
No agenda. The last thing I want to say about unconditional love is that it usually means letting go of our agendas for other people. There is sometimes a fine line between caring and control. While often well-intentioned, our attempts to help another can result in us imposing our view of things onto them. For instance, in my own life, there have been times where, because I thought I could see a problem in a way the other person couldn't, my unspoken agenda was, I know better what's good for you. While it's true that we're sometimes too close to our own problems to see them clearly, as I said earlier, it's easy to slip from caring to control. More than once in those situations, I found my opinions were not asked for nor welcomed. Thinking I know better what someone else needs to do to get their life together can be condescending. It basically says, I don't think the other person can take care of themselves. So then how can we provide assistance to the people we love without disempowering them? For me, the first thing I try to do is let go of the idea that someone else needs my help. Thinking they need me or anyone else implies, as I mentioned a moment ago, that they can't take care of themselves. Of course, we can all use a little help from time to time in life. But the point is, if or when someone else needs help is not up to me to decide. Accordingly, I think of it as offering assistance, or even better, being of service to the other person. The idea is that I'm actually only assisting someone else in solving their issue. They're capable of taking the lead. I'm just there to render whatever assistance I can. Likewise, in terms of being of service, I'm there to serve their own agenda for themselves. This is very different than me pushing my agenda on them. But this raises another issue. Before I can offer assistance or be of service to them, I have to first find out what their agenda is for themselves in that situation. Then once I do this, I have to decide whether or not I can serve that agenda. Proceeding this way is respectful of both them and me. I'm not pushing my solution on them, but I may also decide after hearing what they think they want or need that I can't support them. Doing this little analysis is a way of taking care of ourselves while still being open to helping others. The final part of the equation is not making them wrong for a plan I can't support. Let's look at an example. Suppose a close friend or family member is having financial problems. They ask you for help. They have children and their lack of money is impacting their ability to care for the family. You are amenable to loaning or gifting them some cash until you find out their plan. They want to take the money to the track and bet on a horse they believe can't lose. They claim to have inside info from the horse's trainer and are know how things would turn out. this might actually go well for them. Beyond that, you also trust that something much larger is going on in your life as well as in this other person's life. For instance, it may actually benefit this person in the long run to have a negative experience taking chances with the family's money. They or someone else in the family could learn a very valuable lesson that will serve them later in life. On the other hand, since you've been reading this book, you know loving another doesn't mean you stop loving yourself. If you have reservations about their plan, it's up to you to take care of yourself and your money now so you don't feel resentful of them later. Finally, you also know that whatever you choose to do, making either them or you wrong for your respective choices can't be part of it. So what to do? You give the situation a lot of thought. Perhaps you also speak to other people about it without betraying the confidences of the first person. Eventually, you sit down again with the person you're trying to assist and propose the following. You tell them you really appreciate their desire to improve their financial situation. You also acknowledge them for trying to be innovative and for thinking outside the box. But then you share your concern that this may not be a sound use of the money. You tell them that you're respectfully going to decline giving them the money for their intended purpose, but that you have an alternative solution you'd like to present to them. For instance, you might propose that you would set up a credit account at a local grocery store. This would allow them to take care of the family without you having to worry about them handling the money directly. You may also tell them that certain items are excluded from the grocery store tab, such as alcohol or tobacco, and that you agree to do this only for a specified period of time. After that, they would need to find another way. You may also suggest other conditions, such as they be actively seeking employment and so on, for your assistance to flow. Thus, while you have decided you can't support their original agenda, you propose an alternative way to help that would also work for you. Now, you have done very well. You didn't make them wrong or shame them for their idea. Instead, you acknowledged them for trying to be innovative and for wanting a better life for their family. You also took care of yourself by not agreeing to an agenda which you couldn't support. They may or may not accept your offer, but you have honored yourself while not making them wrong. Thus, we can say, unconditional love means wanting for another what they want for themselves, while at the same time honoring ourselves and not making anyone wrong for their choices. Honoring ourselves by taking care of ourselves is really crucial. In chapters 6 and 7, we'll speak about resentment. It turns out that, for me at least, resentment means I haven't done what I needed to do to take care of myself in that situation, and now I'm blaming someone else for that. Not taking care of myself is a way of not honoring myself in my relationships with others. The above example is also a good illustration of the difference between providing support that empowers versus disempowers the other person. A common characteristic of codependency is rescuing, saving, and enabling others. We might also seek out people who will do the same for us. While doing these things often stems from a genuine desire to help, there may also be a hidden motive of being the hero or someone else's savior. The problem with rescuing or saving another person is that it can rob them of the chance to learn that they can take care of themselves. So while it's okay to help others from time to time, it's also important to note there can be a fine line between empowering and disempowering them. In this regard, it's my belief that one of the most loving things I can do for another person, including children and other family members, is to allow them to experience the consequences of their own choices and actions. This is usually the fastest and most powerful way they'll learn what works in life. The simple guideline is we want to avoid doing for another what they can do for themselves. It's okay to help others when they genuinely need it, but it may also be true that by holding back in certain situations, we give them the opportunity to rise to a new height within themselves that they never knew existed. Of course, they may not be happy with us for not intervening, especially if we have a long history of saving them. But if I do something for another person just so they'll like me, then I'm doing both them and me a disservice.
All right, so welcome back. If you joined us late, welcome to the New Year's Eve edition of the Bigger Than You Think You Are workshop. So we're going to pick up our discussion on love. We're going to finish up our discussion of love tonight. And one of the things that occurred to me was, one of the ways we express love in our relationships is by rendering assistance or being helpful or being of service to others. In fact, being of service is a very high form of love for our fellow man, to be of service, and there are many ways that we can do that. And yet there are some challenges with that. And certainly in my life, there have been some challenges. And so one of the things you heard in the audiobook tonight was the idea that sometimes, again, I'll speak for myself, in the past at least, I've been convinced that I know best what somebody else needs to do to solve their problem or to improve their life or whatever. And whether or not my suggestions were good suggestions, until somebody asked for my assistance, until somebody asked for my advice, I can, looking back now, I can see it was really kind of inappropriate for me to give my opinion about things, to give suggestions or advice without being asked, that kind of thing. And so, I had to learn the hard way in a few instances at least. And it's not that my intention wasn't good, but the way that I delivered on that intention was not the most healthy in terms of relationships. So I learned, actually through my work in Codependence Anonymous, I learned not to give unsolicited advice or opinions about somebody else and how they're living their life. If somebody asks me for my opinion, I'm happy to share. But no more do I give suggestions or advice without being asked. And, that solves a lot of problems. And more than anything else, it's just me being respectful of somebody else. Until people ask for it, they're apparently not really interested in what I think or have to say. So, and then once I am asked for assistance or advice or whatever, then remember we said loving another person doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. So what I've learned, and this is what I talked about in the reading and in the audiobook tonight, what I've learned is to, number one, become aware of my own agenda for the other person. And then number two is to become aware of their agenda for themselves and see whether or not their agenda fits into my value system or whatever, whether their agenda actually works for me. Now, on the first note, it's kind of what I was talking about, me not imposing even if somebody comes to me and asks for my help, it still can be disempowering if I start assuming that I know what's right and they don't know what's right for them. And it can actually be arrogant to approach the situation that way. So I have to be really clear that if I'm going to render assistance to somebody, that I'm coming at it from a place of wanting to empower them, wanting to truly be of service by serving their agenda for themselves, instead of imposing my agenda upon them. Now, the example in the audiobook tonight was a little bit out there, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility, where you have somebody who has a family and they're having financial difficulties, and we want to be helpful. We want to be of assistance to them. But when we find out, when we get a little close, when we look a little closer and ask some questions, we find out what their plan is for the money. And in this case, the plan was to go to the racetrack and put all their money on a horse that they think they have an inside tip on and triple their money. And we have a chance at that moment to offer feedback, but first and foremost is to take care of ourselves and our money in that situation. And if we feel strongly that, that's an extreme example, but there can be other examples, people wanting to invest in the stock market or, whatever, we can go into the equation, into the situation, and make sure that we are on board with their plan. So we want to be of service, we want to be of assistance, but the thing we don't want to do is put ourselves in a situation where we're going to be resentful of them later because they took the money or whatever it is we're offering and they did something crazy with it. See, it's my job to take care of myself going into a situation like that. It's my job to take care of myself and my money or whatever from the get-go. And if I'm committing my time or my energy, what's going to work for me in terms of my time commitment? Maybe it's helping out with the family. If they have kids, watching the kids while they go to work, something like that. I have to be cognizant going into the situation of what I'm committing to, how far I'm willing to go in terms of the assistance I want to render, because the thing I don't want to do is feel resentful of them later because I didn't do what I needed to do now to take care of myself. So all of a sudden, a week or two or a month later, I find out they blew all my money, all the money I gave them, or, I'm spending 15 hours with the kids instead of 2 hours with the kids, whatever it might be. So loving another doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. And sometimes we have to ask the hard questions. Sometimes, now the thing we don't want to do, again, which I mentioned in the audiobook tonight, we don't want to make people wrong for their, let's just call them for their thinking outside the box. Whatever it is that they think is going to get them to where they want to be, for whatever reason, they believe that that's a good solution. They believe that that's a viable solution. And, somebody else looking in may look at that and say it's crazy. But the point is, it's not necessarily the plan, it's the intention behind the plan. And the intention behind the plan is something that we can acknowledge them for. So instead of making that person wrong for wanting to go to the racetrack or investing in Bitcoins, I actually bought my first investment in Bitcoins last night. It's $100 in Bitcoins. Instead of making that person wrong for that, what we want to do is look behind that and say, well, they're really trying to help their family. They're really trying to capitalize, to multiply or amplify the assistance, the aid that we're giving. And so their heart is in the right place. Maybe their mind is not, but their heart is in the right place. So we want to acknowledge them for that, because that's what love does. Love acknowledges, love compliments, love affirms. See, it's the ego that gets in there and starts judging them and wants to say, are you crazy? You want to take the money, this $5,000 and go to the racetrack? Are you out of your mind? What are you smoking? See, that's not loving. That's not compassionate. That's not being understanding. That's being judgmental. That's being critical. That's being shaming. That's being negative. And so we can affirm them and say, I really want to acknowledge you for wanting to create a better life for your family. I want to acknowledge you for thinking, in an innovative way. But I'm not so sure it's really a good idea to do that, and here's why. And if you have an experience, if there are plenty of people in the world who have gambled the family's money away, that can share with that person, what actually happened when they did that. So the point is, we don't have to attack somebody or make somebody wrong for what we consider kind of a silly or foolhardy or, even crazy idea. That's not being loving. That's not being compassionate. That's not being understanding. So when I'm willing to acknowledge them for their intention, and then when I'm willing to take care of myself going into that situation to make sure that I'm not resentful later of what they did or didn't do with the money or whatever, that is being loving. That is being compassionate. That is being truly helpful. And because again, I keep saying this, loving another person doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. And as we've been saying all along, we're responsible. I'm responsible for my well-being, for the well-being of my money, of my time, whatever it is that I'm willing to contribute to the situation. All right, so we want to put our agenda aside, and then we also want to find out what that person's agenda is for themselves, and make sure we can serve that agenda in a way that's healthy for us, safe for us. Now, this is my definition, one of my definitions of love, of loving another person. And so, as in the prior example, loving another means that we want for them what they want for themselves. So again, they may have a harebrained scheme. They may have a really crazy idea about how to go about getting what they think they need, but they want, what's underneath that is they want a better life for their family, or they want to recover from an addiction, or they want to, pursue a career, or whatever. So there's something underneath that. And for whatever reason, no matter what we think of it, no matter what we think of their idea, okay, we can still want for them what they want for themselves. And that's what love does. Love, I want for you what you want for yourself. But this, instead of wanting, see, if I want for you what I want for you, then I'm not loving you. I'm loving myself through you. When I want for you what I want for you. When I want for you what you want for you, I'm loving you. When I want for you what I want for you, I'm loving myself. And I'm not loving you in that situation. I'm actually using you so I can get what I want. All right? So, but then there's a second part of the equation here. All right? And that is, while at the same time honoring ourselves and not making anyone wrong for their choices. So this is what I was saying earlier. We honor ourselves by saying, this is really not going to be a good use. I don't feel comfortable with you using the money for this purpose. Again, in that example of financial help for a person and their family, that's honoring ourselves. That's being true to ourselves. That's saying, going into the situation, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to take care of my money, I'm going to take care of my time, I'm going to take care of me. So that's how I honor myself in that relationship. See, self-care, taking care of myself, that's a way that I honor myself. And I don't have to put somebody else's needs ahead of mine in that regard unless I really want to do that. And it's okay to do that as long as I know what I'm doing it consciously, and I understand the consequences of that. All right, so what we want to do is want for the other person what they want for themselves, while at the same time honoring ourselves and not making anyone wrong for their choices. So even though you've got this crazy harebrained idea about how you're going to multiply that money, I don't have to make you wrong for that. And I can acknowledge the intent behind that, which is a positive intent, which from your point of view, from the way you see the world, makes sense. So I could acknowledge you for that positive intention. I could acknowledge you for wanting a better life for yourself, your family, whatever. All right, and then the last part, again, I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and I think this was also in the reading tonight. Often the most loving thing we can do for another person is to allow them to experience the consequences of their own choices and actions. Now, I believe this is especially true with children, because the fastest way we learn as human beings what works and what doesn't work is when we actually experience the consequences of our choices and actions. We get, in some cases, we get immediate feedback. In other cases, it may take years to get the feedback, but eventually the feedback is going to come to us. And I said in chapter, I think it was in chapter 2, the way we create our life is by making choices and decisions. That's the way we create our life. We make choices. The example I gave in the book, is a painter. She has a blank canvas, and so she starts by choosing her brushes, her paints, and then she has an idea in her head about what she wants to paint. But until she starts making those choices about where to put the paint, what color, how thick is the stroke, how long is the stroke, each one of those decisions becomes decision upon decision, choice upon choice, and eventually she creates a finished painting. That's exactly how our life works. We make choice after choice, decision after decision, and eventually we create our life. Now, the reason I mention the choices is, what happens is there's a consequence for everything we do. every choice we make, every decision we make, every choice we don't make, every decision we don't make, there's a consequence. Now, consequences could be positive or negative. A consequence is not necessarily good or bad, but it's the natural effect of whatever action or decision we made. So every choice has a natural consequence, has a natural effect. Now, there's no better feedback on how to live our life than to notice the consequences of the choices that we're making. I mean, that's truly what, that's what learning is in a lot of cases. We make a decision, we make a choice, and there's a consequence, and we say, oh boy, that didn't really work. Or, oh boy, that really worked. We get feedback. And so what I'm suggesting here is, in many cases, the most loving thing we can do for another person is to allow them to experience the consequences of their choices. Now, again, I'm not a parent, and a lot of you guys have a lot more experience with this than I do. It can be very difficult. We want our children, especially we want our children to be safe. We don't want them to experience pain. We don't want them to have unpleasant experiences. We don't want anything bad to happen to them. So there's this protective inclination. We want to protect them from the world. And in some cases, that means protecting them from their own choices and decisions. And so it's not black and white. It's not always an easy decision to make. Again, you guys probably have a lot more experience with this than I do, at least in terms of children. But I want to suggest that in empowering our children, empowering the people we love, really gives them that freedom to experience life, and then and the consequences that come with that. That's how we learn and grow. Because you know what? We can tell somebody all day long, what's right, what's wrong, what's going to happen if they do this, what's going to happen if they do that. Again, you guys that have kids, you know this much better than I do. But until the kid actually goes out and experiences it themselves, some of us have to learn things the hard way. And that sometimes means going out and doing things and having a negative, quote unquote, a negative experience. Now, we have talked about the fact that there really is no such thing as failure. There really is no such thing as a bad choice or wrong decision, because they're all opportunities to learn and to grow. So, again, not black and white. It's certainly not always easy, especially with people that we love. And I think the more we can empower somebody to make good choices, good decisions for themselves, and have that experience, because that's empowering. I once worked with, I don't have to tell that story. All right, so it's almost time for our break. Let's take a look at the exercise, our assignment for tonight. Kind of keeping up with this theme of, so what I'd like to hear from you guys is, giving an example of helping a person in a way that empowers them rather than disempowers them. It's again, it's not always easy. It's not always black and white. But what we want to do is give an example of helping somebody in a way that empowers them rather than disempowers them. Now, the thing I want to say about all this before we take our break is, for many years, again, coming from a place of codependency, coming from a place of, not having a really healthy sense of interacting with other people, healthy relationships, I was not really always interested in empowering the other person. I was more interested in feeling good about myself. And so when I helped people in the past, it's almost, I don't even like to use the word help anymore. For me, it's rendering assistance or being of service. Because when the helping that I used to do was really not so they could feel better, but so I could feel better. because if I could solve their problems and relieve their pain, I felt valuable, I felt worthy, I felt important, but most of all, I felt powerful. And I've talked about in the past how I, for most of my life, perceived myself as powerless. So when I see myself as powerless, then I'm going to do whatever I can to feel powerful. And sometimes that means trying to fix other people who don't want to be fixed, or who it's none of my business to try and fix, or whatever. So I have to be conscious of this now. And so what we want to do is empower. And the very simple guideline, again, which I mentioned in the audiobook tonight, is we don't want to do for another person what they can do for themselves. Even our children, So the way we empower people is by allowing them to do what they can do for themselves. It's how they learn to rely upon themselves. It's how they learn that they're powerful people. It's how they learn that they can take care of themselves. That's really going to help them later in life. So as much as we may want to make it better for them, make it easy for them, guard against any painful negative experiences, sometimes finding a way to empower them to accomplish those things. And so, when we overcome an obstacle, it builds our confidence. When we, achieve something that we didn't think we could previously achieve or do, it builds our confidence. It makes us more powerful in the world. It makes us more willing to take risks and put ourselves out there. So the more we can empower the people we love, and then not disempower them by, again, something that we talk a lot about in codependency is rescuing, saving, and enabling. So if I'm looking to rescue somebody so I could feel good about myself, or if I'm looking to save somebody from the consequences of their own choices and actions so I could feel, so maybe they'll like me, and I'll get something from them that I want, or if I'm enabling their dysfunctional behavior in any way, I'm not really serving them. I'm not being of service to them, and therefore I'm not really loving them. I'm loving myself through them. I'm trying to feel good about myself by, doing something that the other person should be doing for themselves. Should be doing for themselves. All right. So we're going to take our break. It's a 5-minute break. If you're new, I'm going to play a song. That song is Love My Life by Robbie Williams. I have the lyrics on screen. Those lyrics are great, positive affirmations. So feel free to sing along. Just keep your microphone muted, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. And it'll be your chance to talk. All right, so we're back. Somebody actually said to me on Facebook today, on one of my photos, they said, "You are magical with your camera." So I'm magical. I bet you'd like to see me disappear. Okay, so once again, we are on the New Year's Eve edition of the Bigger Than You Think You Are workshop tonight. So let's see what our assignment was. We want to talk about helping another person, expressing our, loving another person by empowering rather than disempowering them. So, obviously lots of different examples can be given, but I want to hear from you guys. You can also talk about what I was sharing earlier about not having an agenda for the people that we love. Allowing people, especially children, to experience the consequences of their choices and actions. And wanting for another person what they want for themselves while still honoring ourselves and then not making anyone wrong for that, for their choices. So who wants to kick us off tonight?
I'll share. Oops.
Go ahead, Didi.
Thank you. So what came to mind for me was I bought this test kit. It's a product. I'm going to say the name of it. It's called Viome. Basically, they want to disrupt the supplement industry. And, I actually bought one for my boyfriend, but he didn't want to try it. So I sent mine away. But I recently asked my cousin, or, introduced it to her because she's got a lot of issues that I think would be improved or potentially even cleared up with a little help for her gut intelligence flora and the changing of, using their suggestions. Anyway, instead of just buying it for her and giving it to her, or even saying, "Hey, check this out, I'll get it for you if you want it," what I said was, check it out, and I'd be happy to sponsor half of it. I'd love to gift half of it for you if you'd like to have that. And I'll be darned, that was enough allowing her to have her own autonomy, that she chose that for herself and didn't feel like I was forcing it on her. And so this is it's a long lesson for me to learn on how to allow people their own empowerment and autonomy. So what I want you to speak to, particularly Peter, is, this thing about I too benefited from trying to help, or when I thought I was helping somebody, I got power. And that is a very seductive thing that I totally want to get out of. Okay. Love you all. Happy New Year. Pass.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks, Didi. Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. That was a big one for me. It can still be a lure for me. When I was practicing law, when somebody called me up and says, "I have a problem, I need your help," it was like a drug. It was like somebody put a needle in my arm, because I felt euphoric. I felt that, oh my God, now I can matter to somebody. Now I can prove that I'm a worthwhile person. Now I can feel powerful. Now I can feel good about myself because I'm going to solve somebody else's problems. Now again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to help people. And honestly, some of my suggestions and advice was pretty good, But here's the thing, this is so important. When I'm coming at that service, when I'm coming at that being of service to another person from that empty place of feeling unworthy, of feeling not good enough, of feeling unimportant, of feeling powerless, I can't bring the best of me to that situation. I can't truly be of service to another person. I can't truly love them because I'm coming with an empty cup. I'm coming looking to get something from them and from the situation. And so that's going to influence the advice that I give. It's going to influence. And then, the pattern for me was, I give all this wonderful advice and they nod and they say, "This is great." And then they ignore all of it. And then I feel resentful. It's like I'm angry at them because they didn't take my great advice. It's insanity. It was insanity. So rendering assistance, being of service to somebody else, it's really important for me to go into that already filled up. So I'm not looking to feel better about myself by helping somebody else. And that's where this work comes in. That's what this book is about. When I can approach my life now from a place of I am valuable, I am worthy, I am good enough, I am lovable. I don't need anybody to prove that to me. I don't need anybody to tell me that. I don't need to fix somebody else's life so I can feel good about myself. It truly was fixing other people so I could feel better. It really, there were some good suggestions, but I was coming from the wrong place. But I have to be aware of this. See, here's the thing. This feeling of unworthiness, of not good enough, of powerless, of unimportant, of not lovable, it's all below the surface. I'm not consciously aware of any of that, and yet that's what's running my life. All my choices, all my decisions. The next chapter, chapter 5, we're going to talk about decision making. Why we do what we do, why we choose what we choose, why we make the decisions we make. And if that process is being run by my unconscious, subconscious mind that's harboring all these negative thoughts and beliefs about myself, it's not going to be pretty. And I created a lot of a big thing for me, even with clients as a lawyer. Big thing was to become enmeshed in their personal lives. And there's a whole story in chapter 7. I have a whole story about learning how to set boundaries with a legal client of mine because I didn't have good boundaries. Because I became totally enmeshed in this guy's life to my own detriment. And it was all so I could feel good about myself. I created all these problems and all this drama and all this chaos in my life because I was trying to feel good about myself through this other person, through this relationship. And instead of feeling good about myself, remember what I said at the beginning, I love my life, deciding to feel good irrespective of what's going on around me, irrespective of what I think other people think about me, irrespective of, what my family's doing or what my neighbor's doing or what the government's doing or what's happening in the stock market or what's not happening in the stock market or, feeling good and ultimately feeling good about myself independent of all of that. That's true power. Remember, true power is having power. For most of my life, I thought power was having power over other people. True power is having power over myself. Deciding, choosing for me, positive, loving, affirming, forgiving, and not having to go to somebody else to feel good about myself. I can't remember the last time I wore a bow tie. All right, who else? Thank you, Dee Dee. Who else wants to chime in? Empowering the people we love.
Well, I was trying to unmute my audio and finally I'm successful.
Sounds like Joanne.
Hey, how are you doing, Peter and everyone?
Good. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I think when you could, I think this is my personal belief, how you empower yourself and others should be like kind of the same things. So I think trust is a big one. You empower people by trusting them. And I think that also could be a factor in disempowering them too. So, and then just making the commitment to be in something for the long term empowers. But if you don't hold to your commitments, you can also disempower. So that's kind of how I work it with my kids. They'll chase me. Hey, Mom, can I borrow $100? Okay. Is it a loan? Or is it, money that I'm giving you? And they'll say loan, payback, fine. And so I trust that it gets done. I never follow up on it. I'll see it in my chase, and it's a continual thing. And so I think the trust and commitment is really important, at least for our family. And I find it in business too, that I trust that colleagues will get their job done and that you don't have to have major follow-up, and that we're all committed to the same good goal.
Good. So tell me, what does it mean to trust somebody?
Peter, was your question, what does it mean to trust someone?
Yeah, what does it mean to trust somebody? And where I'm going with this is, I found for me, I agree with everything you said. Perfect. And I know that trusting sometimes, see, I don't want to put words. So my take on it is, I don't really have to trust other people so much as I have to trust myself. I have to trust myself to take care of myself in my relationships. I have to trust myself to be kind to myself. I have to trust myself to be kind to other people when I don't like what they're doing or being. So it's more about me learning to trust myself, because then it doesn't really matter what other people do or don't do. I'm going to do the right thing for me and for the relationship. And so,
That's right.
it has to start with me trusting myself. And then I think it is really helpful, I guess, especially with kids, you probably know much better than I do, showing them that you trust them, that you respect them, and letting them then follow through and gain that self-esteem by knowing that they've kept their word, by knowing that they follow through on their commitment. All right, awesome. You want to say anything else about that?
No, thank you. Thank you for the workshop, and your red bow tie looks pretty good there.
Thank you. Thanks. New Year's Eve. I should have told you guys we could have all got dressed up, or at least we had party hats or something. All right, great. Thank you, Joanne. Anybody else want to chime in on our topic? Empowering the people we love rather than disempowering them. Letting our children learn from their own mistakes.
The thought that came to my mind is, I understand what you're saying, and it almost seems like two different things. Well, I shouldn't say that. That almost sounds judgmental. How I would see to really empower somebody is, you talk about it like most of the time it is a parent and the child is really out of control, I guess would be the word. And that has got to be the hardest thing that any parent can go through, because you love them. I mean, the pain and the suffering is unexplainable. And so they're in a spot. And and what came to mind is, and if it happens, it's got to have all the pieces together. But if you happen to be there, you, me, whoever, happen to be with that parent, and you speak to that parent like you just spoke, just what would be the lifting them up or saying the things that you're saying, not for any reason, not to change the outcome of that moment or anything, but just saying those words. I think the thing that you would do for that person would be tremendous. But all those pieces have to come together. That's what came to my mind, because like you said, don't give unsolicited advice. Don't do this, don't do that. It's like, you don't want to say, it's my sister. I don't want to go there and tell her blah, 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 because she didn't ask me. It would be like if I was there, and the pain that she would be going through would be so tremendous. And there is no answer at that moment. And so then you just say all the things that you just said. They're in the back of your head, for people who are going through this, they're there. And you just say them. You give her, I'm kind of scattered because I was running around, but it came to me like whatever you were saying, and it's really empowering her. But at the moment, she didn't ask me, and I had to be there. And I think if that happened, you would help that person. You would empower that person more than you could possibly imagine. And then you could even walk away and never know. But what you would do for that person at that moment, because she's in such pain, And I mean, because, I was there. A lot of people have been there with their children. And it's an unbelievable situation. And it would be almost like having a guardian angel just come to you and go, you're the great, you're okay. You did it, all those things you were saying. And it's like just feeding her that information. I think that would be wonderful. So that's what I thought about at the moment, as a lot of these things we're talking about, they have to kind of fit into a puzzle or a piece sometimes. And sometimes they just don't. Sometimes you're not there. You couldn't do that for that person. But if you are, and you do that, it would be what you're talking about. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
And that's
What
what came
occurred
to
to me-
mind. Go ahead.
Good. That was good. One of the things that occurred to me is sometimes the most loving thing we can do for another person is just listen. You
Right.
know?
But all of that aside, I understand. So you're having all those things, and those are all true. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes it's saying nothing. It's listening. But what I thought of is that, wow, what if I was there and this person's going through the pain and the stuff just came out? I think you would just help
Right.
that person tremendously. I think you're getting it now, but it has to have that. You have to be there, and you didn't know this, this horrible thing was going on at the moment. So
Yeah. And sometimes the communication could just be a phone call or a text or something like that.
mhm. Yeah.
Just to let the person know that I've done this with one particular person in my family, where I just text that person just so they know that I'm thinking about them, and if they want to talk ever or anything like that, I'm there. And
I think that's the same thing I'm saying. And then, like I said, what came to mind is, wow, what if you were actually physically there with the person and did that for them? I think
Yeah.
that would just be such a gift. So that was my thought.
Great. Good.
And
Thank you.
with your book and all the things that we talk about, we have all this, what would be the word, Peter? We have all this information to give out, or all this guidance. What's the word? What word am I struggling with? Like, what do you have? What do you call it that you have that you want to share with other people? Insight?
Well, insight, experience.
Okay, because you said you've been doing it for 30 years. So yeah, once you start doing this journey, you have that experience somewhere there.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Now put the two people together and boom, let it happen.
Well, listen, yeah, I mean, I've had that experience too. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
and when people, and people have done this for me. I've had people that have sponsored me in 12-step programs that just changed my life. So, or people that I've studied under or whatever. I mean, so it's not just, it kind of, we pass it on and, everybody benefits from it.
Mhm.
And yeah, and we're always in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no
It's almost,
accident.
I want to say, the more the pain, the more the gain, in that sense too.
Potentially. Yeah,
Yeah.
potentially. But it could also go another direction,
Right.
but yeah.
We've been
so
there too.
I've been there. So it's, it's letting people know that we care, that we're available, that if they want to talk, if they need to talk, if they want our advice.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's more than caring. It's imparting knowledge. It's imparting something, giving them something more than just saying I care. That's what I'm talking about. And that person I know would sit there and go, wow, that was just the greatest thing that ever happened. It just took their mind away from the pain that they were going through for a few minutes,
Right. Yeah. Well, and yeah, and a lot of times people will come to that when we create the safe space for them,
Mm-hmm.
they'll come to their own conclusions.
Yeah.
And I know this from my experience in 12-step programs. Sometimes it's just hearing myself share, I get the answer that I need.
Okay, that's another way of putting it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times if you go, if you've done therapy, a good therapist says very little and they just listen. And a lot of people will come to their own insights through that process. sometimes hearing ourselves say the problem out loud, it's like, oh, suddenly we see it a little differently.
Right.
So it's all of that. But, again, for me at least, I have to come from a place of not wanting to fix somebody's life so I could feel better about myself.
Yeah, that I agree. That's what I'm saying. I agree with all of that. And just there's no, if you want to call it, no strings attached. Right.
And, I don't really know what anybody else needs to do with their life. This is what's worked for me. But, this book isn't for everybody. And I don't really know what somebody else needs to do to get their life together. And that's also part of the arrogance of the ego. The ego thinks it knows better than everybody about everything. And, but, I have a different experience now. And it's because for me, I've really focused on esteeming myself from within, esteeming myself in a positive way. So I don't have to go to somebody else to fix them to feel better about myself or whatever, or give them advice or feel resentful when they don't take my advice. Because that was a big one. I gave you all this great advice and you didn't use it. Now look at you,
Yeah,
and there's, I can gloat over that. I can make them wrong. It can be judgmental. All right, great. Thanks, Barb.
You're
Want to
welcome.
say anything else? You're good.
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. Who else? Cynthia, did you want to go?
Yes, please. I'm Cynthia, and I'm glad to be able to have listened to most of the evening. Thank you. And I wanted to share an example from about probably 50 years ago. I was a brand new teacher in an all-Black school in Los Angeles, and I had baby Crips and baby Bloods who were, the beginning of those gangs. And I was teaching reading, and I had a young man who was, in my estimation, very bright, but probably had some kind of a learning challenge, had never learned to read. And he was becoming a pimp, and that was his aspiration. He thought that would be his goal in life, to be a pimp, a successful one. But I thought that he might learn to read and do it better, at least, or learn to read and do something else. So I found a book on pimping, and it was a really good book. I read it cover to cover. It was a really good book. It wasn't too hard, not too hard in terms of reading level. And I said to him one day, I really do want you to read, and I found a book that I think you might be interested in. And he said, no, I don't think so. I said, really? I found a good book, a book that you really might want to read. And he said, well, what is it? And I told him, and he said, yeah, let me have that book. So I gave him the power. I mean, I was willing to teach him how to read, do whatever it took to teach him how to read, but he had to have the interest to do that. And that rather unusual way. I don't know that my employer would have been pleased, but I always wondered what happened to him. So maybe he's listening, can come and tell me. But that was an empowering thing, because I was giving him not only, I had the skill sets to teach him to read, but he had to have the interest to learn how to read. And once he had a book that had material in it that he was wanting to learn, he was empowered to take the skills that I had to offer. So I just wanted to share. That's a very old story.
That's great. That's it. So we're not imposing our agenda on the other person. We're allowing them to choose for themselves, and then we're empowering them in a healthy way. So that's great. So you don't know if he actually learned to read or if he read the book?
Oh, no, he did learn to read. He wanted to read that book, so he learned to read.
Oh, well,
He
there you
did.
go.
Yeah. Now, in terms of whether he changed his career options as a result, that would have been my desire. Mine,
Right.
maybe not his.
Wow.
But then he had options, choices available that, might not have been available otherwise. So
Right.
it was good. Los
that's great.
Angeles in the 70s. Laura said to wish you all a happy new year. She wasn't able to come tonight, but she wanted you to know that she really is enjoying this and appreciating it, as am I, and hope that you all have a happy, happy new year. And I like the red tie.
Thank you.
I had
Thank you.
my mask on with my chili peppers for New Mexico. Thank you.
Nice. All right, great. Thanks, Cynthia. Anybody else want to say anything about anything? We're almost time to wrap up for the year. Lynn, you want to say something?
Yeah, I can share things happen at work oftenly. Um, I'm have those customers who come see me for a long time, and when they arrive, sometimes I can see that they're not doing well, and I can feel it. So, and sometimes I'm just saying to them, so I know you're not feeling okay, but if you want to talk, I'm here. I'm not here for to judge, or I can just listen to you. And people are really open to me. And after, oftenly, um, one in particular, she sent me a card, and she was so appreciate that I didn't judge her, and I just listened to her. She was appreciate a lot my listening and everything. So, and just that, it give me joy to so just to have listened to her and not judge her. She felt good. So I'm doing that a lot in my job, and that is really nice for me. I feel good when I'm doing it. So I did just a little, and doesn't cost much just to listen to people, and they feel great after be, being sitting in my chair and share those story. So yeah, that's it.
That's
You look
great.
nice with your red things.
Thank you. New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
So that's great, Lynn. So that's being of service. That's loving another person. When we can sit and hold the space for them so they can be who they are without feeling judged or criticized or whatever, we're creating that safe space for them. That's really being of service to somebody. And, we can equate being of service with loving them. It's a very kind thing to do, to allow somebody to just be who they are, not make them wrong for that, give them the space to express themselves. It's another thing that's so important with kids, giving kids the opportunity to say how they feel, without criticizing them, without shutting them down. I've seen it in my own life, where, we tell a child you shouldn't feel that way, that's not helpful. That's not creating a safe space for the child, because we don't feel validated. When somebody listens without judging, without even commenting sometimes, we feel accepted for who we are. We feel validated.
yes, a
So
lot.
as a hairstylist, I'm sure you hear all kinds of stories,
Yeah,
over the years. And
yeah.
that's great. It's great to have the willingness to be there for people.
But I have that thing that I feel people, so I can I know if something is wrong. And sometimes they said that I should have two jobs, a therapist and a hairdresser. So, but they have both for the same price, so it's okay.
There you go. They get a good deal.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else? We're almost done for the year, guys. This is your last chance to share in 2020. All right, so I want to just, first of all, anybody want to say anything before we wrap it up?
I do. It's
Dee-
Dee Dee. Thank you, Peter, thank you for creating this safe space and making it possible to hear the review recordings every week. And also, I want to say thank you for all the time and energy and effort that you put into the whole thing. And I absolutely want to donate. So thanks for that invitation to do that, so we can keep the workshop open. Happy New Year, Pat.
Great, thank you, Dee Dee. Anybody else?
And I ordered my book, so it's okay if it's a few weeks late. I know it'll be great.
Yes, I did get your order for the audiobook. So you guys will get it. It's just, I want it to be really good, and I just have some technical challenges that I have to overcome. All right, so what I want to do, I want to end 2020 by just thanking you guys for giving me the opportunity to be who I want to be, for supporting me in the way that you guys have supported me. You know, I started, the first workshop was back in July 15th. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea what I was going to say. And so I just want to thank you guys for supporting me, for believing in me, for giving me an opportunity to give back to you. And I'm planning on taking all this to the next level in 2021. So in particular, I'm going to be working with a PR person, public relations, and start getting myself out there as a speaker, as an author, hopefully getting booked on podcasts, TV shows, news shows, stuff like that. So take all this to the next level. I'm going for it in 2021. And I actually have a podcast I'm doing next week, which would be a good way to kind of ease into all that. And so it's exciting, and I'm beginning the next phase of my life, you know, in terms of my work on this planet at this time. And, but I couldn't do any of this without you guys, you know, so the people who show up every week, and even the people who came once and then never came back, I'm just so grateful that you gave it a chance, you know, that you came and you listened, and maybe it's not right for you now, maybe not ever, that's totally fine. But I couldn't do this. I mean, I guess I could sit in front of a camera talking to myself, but it's having you guys there that makes it all worthwhile. So I want to thank you. And hopefully, you know, this time next year, you know, we'll have lots and lots of people on the workshops, and we'll take the whole thing to the next level. So, so I love you guys. Thank you so much. Obviously, hope everybody has a safe New Year's, and we'll see you next week. Anybody want to say anything?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Happy
you
New
very
Year.
much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Yes, Peter, thank you, and Happy New Year. That was wonderful. That was a great feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you
Guys,
very much. I
You guys are
appreciate
the
it a lot.
best. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. All right, guys. So remember, be bigger than you think you are in everything that you do, and watch how your life changes. Happy New Year.